Welcome back, baseball family. We are going to get into our picks for the Chicago White Sox Mount Rushmore, as we said. However, we're going to do a little bit of an info dump on you really quick, just so you can kind of get an idea of the franchise and where they're coming from. Do you want to do where the team name came from real quick?
Yeah, I'll do that first. So this is according to teamnameorigin.com. So the Chicago White Sox were originally the Sioux City Cornhuskers, and then they were the St. Paul Saints of the Western League. And then Charles Comiskey moved the Saints to Chicago in 1900 when the Western League joined the American League of MLB.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so after relocating to the south side of Chicago, Comiskey adopted the name the White Stockings.
Right.
And then in 1904, and actually, real quick, the White Stockings used to be the Cubs name before they were the Cubs.
Correct.
So there's that.
You need to know that.
So then in 1904, changed to the White Sox, SOCKS,
Mm-hmm.
and then to the White Sox, SOX.
Right.
And then now the White Sox, SUX.
Bro,
So
just as of
there's
this
that.
season. Just this season.
Yes.
But also, yeah, unless Tommy Pham is hot. But who knows if that's still going. This is previously recorded.
Indeed.
All right, baseball family, Chicago White Sox have had 124 seasons in their franchise history from 1901 to 2024 so far. Their record is 9,567 games to 9,523 games. That's a 501 win-loss percentage. The playoff appearances have been 11 total, 6 pennants, 3 world championships. Winningest manager is Jimmy Dykes, who had a .489 win percentage through his term as White Sox manager.
It's interesting to think that they've only had 11 playoff appearances.
Yeah.
During that time.
It's one a decade.
That doesn't make me feel so bad as a Mariners fan.
Right. That makes sense. The years they won the World Series were 2005, obviously.
Obvi.
And then not again until 1917.
Yep.
And before that, 1906. Those are their World Series victories, not appearances. There have been other appearances. Those are the wins.
Yeah. That's craziness. So they went 1917 to 2005.
Yeah.
That's almost as long as the Cubs did.
Yeah.
Man, what a drought for Chicago baseball.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Didn't think about it that way until just this minute.
Yeah.
Did you?
No.
Wolf.
Not until just this moment. Okay, let's get into our Mount Rushmore nominees.
Yeah.
One thing, baseball family, that Brig and I noticed going through this is that there are some organizations that feel transient.
Yeah.
That players come through and they don't stay for a really, really long time. The Angels previously has been one of them that we found. That it was really hard to do this because there are not a lot of guys who stuck around in Anaheim and played for the Angels for
extended periods of time,
and who were great players.
Right.
So another one is the White Sox. So there's a good chance we're going to overlap quite a bit. Spoilers, we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
I'll go first. So I want to start with one of my favorite players ever. One of my favorite players from the 90s.
Yeah.
Like one of my best friends when I was a kid in elementary school, Frank Thomas was his favorite player.
Frank Thomas.
Yes. So Frank
Big
Thomas,
Hurt.
the Big Hurt. Frank Thomas is a Hall of Famer, 2-time MVP, 5-time All-Star, won a batting title, which is crazy for a guy with his kind of power. The fact that he won a batting title. Major League Player of the Year, 4-time Silver Slugger, member of the 500 Home Run Club, and has a Home Run Derby championship to boot. He led the league in doubles once, walks 4 times, because who wants to pitch to that dude, especially in his prime. He, again, led the league in batting average 1 time. That was his batting title. On base percentage 4 times, slugging once, OPS 4 times, and sack flies 1 time.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a 7-year peak, 91 to 97. He fell off for a couple of years and had a little bit of resurgence in 2000, where he actually finished runner-up in the MVP voting. So it's
really that late?
That late.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the way his career was like super duper duper high, and then he had a couple down years, and then 2000 he had a really great year again.
Yeah,
like I said, runner up in the MVP voting, and that's huge.
Yeah,
like I said, for a guy like Frank Thomas, because as big as he was physically, he was always that big when he came into the league. And I don't think I've ever seen his name attached to steroids.
No, never.
Like him and Griffey were like the dudes who didn't.
Totally.
Right?
Yep.
So it's really interesting to see Frank Thomas, because that's the other thing, is that you can almost justify or defend it right off the bat with that, no pun intended, that his career had a natural progression.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That he didn't, that resurgence in 2000 did not continue into 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, or 7, or even 8.
Where exactly?
He stuck around, but he wasn't a slugger still. If he was doing steroids, he still would have been a slugger into 2007.
For sure. That's a good point. I like that.
So anyway, I feel like Frank Thomas defined the White Sox during our childhood, during the 90s.
For sure.
And so he was an automatic super duh, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I happen to agree with you.
I figured you would.
And along with everything Brad already pointed out, I had a couple of little like nuggets to drop on you. Did you know he won 2 MVPs, right?
Yeah,
you mentioned.
Yeah.
But he's the only White Sox player ever to win multiple MVPs.
I can see that. That makes sense. Yeah.
But did you know that he went 9 seasons with 101 runs or more, 100, at least 100 RBIs and 100 walks? He did that 9 seasons. The only other players in history to do it at least or more are Barry Bonds with 10.
Makes sense.
And Ruth and Gehrig both have 11.
Wow.
Yep, that's 100 runs, RBIs, and walks all in the same season.
That's some pretty elite company.
That's a pretty good list to be on there.
Yeah, it is. Like it just going back and remembering the kind of hitter he was. Mm-hmm. Like I said, like it's crazy to see somebody who had that much power, was that big, and it's not just that pitchers were afraid to pitch to him because of his power, but because he was such a great raw hitter.
Well, he's intimidating too.
Well, I wouldn't want to pitch to anybody that big.
Right.
So when I was in middle school and high school playing City League, like our City League, like Babe Ruth League, there was a dude who we all went to school with. He was a year older than me. He ended up playing offensive line at University of Oregon.
Oh, okay.
Big dude.
Yeah.
And with everybody in the league, I had no problem playing up on the grass if I was playing third base.
Right.
When he came up, I moved to the back of the dirt.
Yeah. You're like,
because I was like, he's not fast enough that I'm not going to be able to take a couple of hops to throw the ball, but he's going to hit it hard enough at me that I'm going to have a lot of time to get that throw over.
Makes sense.
So he was really scary. That's
scary.
what I imagined it being like with Frank Thomas up there.
Yeah.
But Frank Thomas didn't have a metal bat.
You might as well have
a loaded Omaha classic metal bat, whatever it was that we were using back then that had bigger than Big League Pop.
All right. Pardon me.
Go ahead with your next one.
All right, my next one that's not Frank Thomas is he's a pitcher, actually a lefty, and 5-time All-Star, 2005 World Series victor, 4-time Gold Glove. He has his number retired, which we should have done. We should have gone through and mentioned the retired numbers. But
that's all right.
We made it forget. Okay, this is none other than Mark Burley. Mark Burley had a 59.1 career WAR. Career ERA of 3.81, 1.281 whip. Whip is a total strikeout number of 1,870. And he spent most of his career in Chicago, 12 seasons to be exact. And during that time, he, won the World Series. Obviously, we talked about that. He also was an all-star selection 4 times, count on 4 times. And look at these defensive highlights.
That's one of the greatest plays ever made. That last one.
It is. It's
truly
so awesome.
Yeah.
So he he threw 2 no-hitters with his time in Chicago.
Wasn't one of them a perfect game?
One of them was a perfecto. Yep. One of them was a perfecto. And it was the 18th perfecto in Major League Baseball history at the time. That was in 2009, July 23rd. That was the second perfect game in White Sox history.
Really?
Yeah. The most previous one was 1922.
So the only other one?
Correct. The only most previous one, the single solitary perfecto most previousness to Mark Burley was in 1922. He's the only other one, okay? So he is responsible for the 16th and I think 17th no-hitter in franchise history. One of them was also a perfect game, obviously. He did one of them in 2007, one in 2009. That was the perfecto. The guy was automatic. He started as many games as anybody else. In 2004 and in 2008 with Chicago, he led the league in just games started. Innings pitched in 04 and in 05. He finished in the Cy Young voting, I think, did him dirty because he did a great job, but he only finished top 5 one time. That was in 2005.
Yeah, well, in that year, the winner was not A-Rod because he's not a pitcher.
Yeah.
That year was Bartolo Colon. So the four guys in front of him: Bartolo Colon, Mariano Rivera, Johan Santana, and Cliff Lee. Pretty good group.
Yeah, that's a pretty good group. Cliff Lee's terrible. If you didn't know, it's horrible.
He was when he was in
terrible.
No, he wasn't when he was in Seattle. He just had a bad attitude in Seattle.
I'm just teasing. Anyway, so I don't think because of his attachment to the perfecto, the no that wasn't a perfecto, and the World Series ring, easy got to be on the Mount Rushmore. He brought the old generation and that struggling team that he inherited.
Mm-hmm.
Took him all the way.
Well, one thing about Burley too, because I also have him on my list.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. For all the same stuff you just said, all those, I just thought I'd let you run through it, and I could say I concur, sir. But one thing about Burley that's really interesting is that we have pitchers now who really struggle with the pitch clock. Burley would not have struggled with the pitch clock. That dude worked fast and furious.
Yeah,
and I think that probably contributed somewhat to his no-nos. Right, his no-no and his perfecto.
Just disruptive.
Yeah, that you don't let batters get too comfortable in the box. You're throwing the next pitch before they've even had a chance to adjust their batting gloves at the time. So,
right?
I think I think that's significant. The fact that it worked for him and worked well for him, and that he was able to have the career that he did. So, yeah, I absolutely have Mark Burley on my Mount Rushmore as well.
How can you not? Well, and you saw the defensive opportunities there.
Yeah.
Guy's amazing.
Well, people kind of dump on pitchers for not playing defense
because they're not athletic enough,
right? And some of them aren't. I think they'll admit it,
of course,
right? But clearly, Burley, even being a burly dude, pun intended, was able to fill this position, and good for him.
Yeah.
And that's got to help with no-nos and perfectos too,
for sure.
Love it.
All right, you got another one?
I got another one.
Can we overlap again? I'll bet we do.
Yeah, I've got a controversial one. Should I go with the controversial one now, or the?
I don't know what you have, so go ahead.
I'll go with the no-brainer and end with the controversial one. Okay. So this next guy, just Paul Konerko. Paul Konerko.
What?
Yeah. Did you have him?
Yeah.
Probably, I would assume. So Paul Konerko, great player. He spent like his entire career in Chicago, didn't he? Almost. So his first couple years he's in LA and then Cincinnati for a year, which is funny because I somehow remember him in Cincinnati. I don't remember how. But look at this toughness. So he gets hit in the face right here. This is game 1 of the World Series, game 2.
I don't remember.
First inning of the World Series game. And then he stays in the game. Third inning, grand slam.
Just a homer.
Was it a home? I thought it was a grand slam.
No, he goes in. I think there's one runner on, and he dumps one into left field bleachers.
Okay.
No, doesn't matter. He still gets hit in the face, stays in the game, comes back up, his next at bat, and he bombs one into the left field.
Yeah, absolute toughness. It was a grand slam.
It was?
It was. Yeah, in game 2. Yeah, those are his only 4 RBIs in the World Series. He went 4 for 16 in the World Series. And Jermaine Dye ended up winning the MVP because he had like 7 hits or something like that. But Konerko, I feel like anytime you hit a grand slam, obviously it's going to have a significant impact because it's a bunch of runs all at once.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, though, Konerko, 6-time All-Star, 2005 ALCS MVP. He is a member of the 400 Home Run Club, which is a significant achievement, I feel like, as well. And like we mentioned, he's on the 2005 team that won the World Series.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. there are certain guys, like I always go back to Todd Helton when I think of him with the Rockies. Konerko's another guy. If you're going to name 4 or 5 guys, Konerko's going to be one of the first ones that pops up.
Yeah.
When you're naming a White Sox. Right?
Yeah. Right off the top of your head?
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time trying to justify not including him in my group.
Yeah. Not me. I was like, this guy.
Because it felt like a little bit of a cop-out because it was too easy.
I know.
I didn't want my list to be that easy, but I couldn't find anybody who was better.
You know why he's on my list?
Tell me why.
Because he led the league in nothing ever.
And that was that's one of the reasons I was trying to justify. The only time he led the league in anything was grounded into double play.
Yeah,
in 2003.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, his highest MVP vote was 5. And that was
6.
Or 6, sorry.
Oh, no, it was 5. You're right. My bad.
It's 5 in 2010 and 6 in 2005.
Yeah.
Everything else, he has a 22 placement and a 16 placement. That's it in MVP voting. Everything else was just a handful of All-Star selections. I think 6 All-Star selections and a World Series. And that's it. So here's my point. The fact that when we think of, okay, who are the most iconic White Sox players, who can we not talk about the White Sox without naming? And he's on there, but he never led the league in anything. But he's clearly capable. I mean, he's a serviceable player. He's a 21 or 28.1 career WAR, career batting, 279. You know,
well, and part of it is because he was there forever.
Yeah, but this is not a Hall of Fame inductee list.
No,
this
he's
is
not.
This is the White Sox storyline. List for me. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, that's how I look at it too. Is if you're gonna have guys you can't tell the story without, you've got to have these guys.
Yep, and
that's why I included my controversial person at the end. But we'll get there.
Okay, I have an idea who it might be.
I don't think you do. Go ahead with your next one.
Fine. So I only have one more. I only have one more. Can you believe that? So I only have one more, and this one surprised me. Let me say that because once I looked at the numbers, I was like, yeah, I shouldn't be surprised. But he's not a top of mind guy because of the era. Okay, it's my youth is the problem. I'm going to talk about Minnie Minoso. Okay, Cuban born. Let me pull up his video here because it's really cool. Minnie Minoso, Cuban born. He was a left fielder and third baseman. Currently, you can find him in the Hall of Fame. 13-time All-Star, 1947 World Series champion, 3-time Gold Glove. Career WAR 53.3 with a batting average 299 over his career. He led the league in everything eventually. Like, over time, he hit every single statistic. He spent 12 years with the White Sox. And in that time, obviously, like I said, he won a World Series. And but look, he led the league in hit by pitch in 52, 53, 54, 56, 7, 8, 9, 60, 61.
I wonder if he was one of those guys who just crowded the plate.
I gotta be.
Was basically standing on top of it the whole time.
23 hit by pitch. In 1956, he was hit by a pitch 23 times. That led the league. He was MVP number 27 vote.
Look at the next year. Look at the next year.
Yeah, and then he goes up to the 8th slot in a Gold Glove with an All-Star selection.
With 21 hit by pitch.
With 21 hits by pitch. But he also that season worked 15 walks, which is a lead leaguing.
No, he walked. That's 79 walks.
I just said lead leaguing again, didn't I?
He did. Yeah, it's like.
Why do I do that? And then
so it's 79 walks. He got caught stealing 15 times.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Which also led the league, but the fact that he was still attempting. I love that he was attempting.
Yeah, I do too. Well, that's what baseball was old school anyway. So.
Yeah. So you didn't share his nickname though. He has one of the coolest names I've ever.
Go ahead.
Heard.
Is he on your list too?
No, he's not.
Okay. Tell everybody.
I did look at him.
Yeah.
He's the Cuban Comet. I love that nickname.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
We need another Cuban Comet in Major League Baseball.
We really do. Oh, can you? Can you recycle nicknames like that?
They do. I mean, how many guys do we have nicknamed the Kid? right? How many people have been the man or the machine?
There's only 2 men, and one of them asked permission.
Right.
This is not a screw-upable topic.
I understand. I understand. I'm just saying that we've had guys with multiple, and I mean, we talked about the A's, right? There were 10 guys who went by Lefty.
Yeah, you're right.
So
You're exactly
super
right.
original nickname. I can't get over it.
That's true.
If a dude was a left-hander in the early 1900s, his name was Lefty.
He's just all Lefty.
So there's that. Okay. Okay.
I don't have any left.
Okay, I'll get into my last one.
Do you have one?
I have one more.
Okay.
One more. It is controversial. So we all know about the 1919 Black Sox.
Don't do this to us.
I'm going to do this to you. It's not Joe Jackson.
What?
Yeah, it is.
Wait, if you were going to, that's what I was thinking. You said controversial, and I immediately went to Shoeless Joe.
I know you did. That's why I said you didn't know.
Okay.
So I chose Eddie Seacott.
Oh.
So don't roll the video yet. Don't roll the video yet. Let me tell you why I didn't choose Shoeless Joe. Okay. Shoeless Joe Jackson played for the White Sox for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
He also played in Cleveland for 6 years.
Yes.
His best years of his career?
Cleveland.
For
sure.
Eddie Seacott was a fantastic pitcher for the White Sox. He played for them for 9 years. The knuckleballer.
Right?
Love it.
Love that.
Therefore, his nickname was
Knuckleballer.
Knuckles.
Knuckles. My nephew calls Knuckles, the Sonic character, Knuckles, Knucks.
Knucks. I love it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to push play on the video.
Go for it. So, yes, he was one of the players to help fix the 1919 World Series, but he led the league with 30 complete games. 1 point, his walk per 9 was 1.4. In the World Series, he pitched in 3 games, 2 complete games, 2.91 ERA, 7 strikeouts, 7 walks, 9 runs, 7 earned. I'm sure that some of those errors that led to those unearned runs were probably intentional by somebody else in the field, right?
I mean, it was collusion at the highest level.
Right,
so.
and 1 hit by pitch. Okay. This man is a 6-time All-Star. That's not true. That jumped down to my Polkinarco notes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that's true.
That is absolutely not true. But I am going to, I mean, in 1917, he led the league in ERA, 1.53.
Yeah.
He led in innings pitched a couple times, batters faced, ERA plus. Whip with a sub 1 whip in 1917. Granted, different era.
Sure.
Different way of playing the game.
Sure,
right? But the fact that you're not allowing 1 runner per inning through the course of an entire season.
Yeah.
When he started, where is it? Where'd it go? I got it right here.
You got it.
He appeared in 49 games.
That's it? I'm just kidding.
As a pitcher?
That's a joke.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. 35 starts. And he threw 29 complete games. Because he was a knuckleballer. And it was 1917.
Right. Which was like revolutionary.
Right. Yeah, so one of the things I looked at with him is that he had several trick pitches. He had names of pitches I had no idea what they were, what they did.
I'm sure that's
true.
true.
But the knuckleball was what he was most known for and was what led to most of his success. But gambling was his downfall. Not necessarily gambling as his involvement.
Well, he was kind of like the chieftain.
Well, then absolutely he belongs on the Mount Rushmore.
What?
Brig, how much of the Black Sox scandal tells the story of the White Sox? How often does that come up in baseball conversation?
60% of the time?
Every time, right? 60% of the time, every time.
That was an alley-oop.
I appreciate that. You're getting good at tossing up lobs. I appreciate it. But I feel like you have to have somebody from that group on the Mount Rushmore because it is such a part of the team's history.
Mm-hmm.
There are several movies made about it. One of the greatest baseball movies in the history of history is part of this.
Field of Dreams. Yeah.
Right?
It scooped this up. Well, an 8 Men Out isn't a terrible film.
That's what I hear.
The book is fabulous, Baseball Family. If you have not read the book, it is really good.
Yeah.
Did you know that Eddie Seacott has threw a no-hitter in 1917
Makes sense.
for the Chicago White
That
Sox?
was like his career year.
That was the
1917.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was before the gambling and corruption.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that somebody who had that good of a career and won the World Series in 1917, and maybe that's why they were so, I don't want to say so willing, but why they were willing to fix the World Series in 1919, because they weren't hungry anymore.
Nope. That's
They
not
already
it.
won it.
No. The history is well documented. And here's what happened. They were being taken advantage of by the ownership. And they were not earning the shares that they thought they ought to be earning. They felt disillusioned and disenfranchised by how they were being treated as employees of the club. And so they were like, all right, well, we need to get paid somehow because nobody's listening to us.
And that's what they decided to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's one of the things I'm saying, though. Is
crazy.
At what point does the money become more important than the winning?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
We've got a World Series. What we don't have is money.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? Could be. I don't know if that's
I'm
necessarily
just
the case.
saying.
And it was a different time back then.
Totally.
You know, like people, and that's the thing is people get all over the case of the modern athlete for wanting to get paid the way that they do.
It's not
But
modern.
it's always been that
That's
way.
not a modern problem.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I'm sure since the 1800s when lefty screwball, whatever, I don't know, was like, I would love to be playing baseball full time, see, but they don't pay me enough, see? This is the problem,
Right.
see?
Casey at the bat. Casey, what was his name? Casey something?
Casey at the bat with
the Mudhounds.
Mudville.
The Mudville.
Mudhens.
Mudhens. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so where's the line? This is, and we'll ask Baseball Family this. Baseball Family, where's the line? If we're talking about a Mount Rushmore, under the premise that you cannot tell the story of the franchise without these names, must they all be celebrated parts of the history, or is there room for controversial names like Eddie Seacott or Joe Jackson or others that have or will continue to come up? Because that's a really important distinction when we, not for this silly thing we're doing with the Mount Rushmores, but
Right.
but when we think about the history of this game that we love, which is rich and nuanced and full of far more complexity than most people give it credit for, it's interesting to think that we're dealing with the same problems today with the issues between the Players Association and Major League Baseball and the ownership groups as they were then. They just weren't protected then. That's the only difference.
And we've had a gambling scandal this year even.
Exactly.
Right? Like 100 years later, things aren't much different than what they were then. Bigger scale? Sure.
For sure.
A little bit different investigation, probably.
But yeah.
I'm curious. Like I said, I haven't watched or read 8 Men Out, so I don't know what the public perception was of Joe Jackson being involved with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. That if people were like, well, you can't suspend Joe Jackson forever.
He's
shoeless Joe.
It was very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's just like Ohtani and just like Pete Rose. I guess it's every 50, 60 years?
It seems that way now that you pointed out. But here's the thing about Joe Jackson, though, is that he was aware of the scandal, but
right.
So he didn't say anything.
Well, he played his butt off during the World Series.
And people say, well, how can you take a look at these stats and how he performed and call him to say he was dumping the games?
Right. And the thing that I do know about it is it sounded, from what I understand, the deal would have been off if Jackson wasn't in on it. So
he was the key.
Yeah.
Well, he and Seacott were the two guys that if they could, because it wasn't Seacott's idea, they had to massage Seacott into it.
Makes sense.
And Seacott, anyway, go read the book.
Because Seacott pitched well too.
He most of the time, not the whole time.
Well, I mean, I feel like 7 strikeouts, 7 walks is pretty on par for a knuckleballer in that era.
But in that era, I don't know.
Knuckleballers are going to walk a lot of dudes.
That's true.
Naturally. And they're going to hit a guy or two.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right.
You don't know where it's going.
Yeah, neither do they. Nobody does.
Yeah, exactly right. That's the point of the pitch.
Yeah.